It's the end of spring, summer is just around the corner, and we're heading out in search of good weather to Croatia since Prague hasn't offered much sunshine lately. If you were going to Pula, you'd probably take a different route, but we're doing it the Slovak way via Bratislava. Even though the map suggests Hungary, that's not happening. After our last fiasco with the highway vignette, which we bought an hour and 2 minutes after entering instead of within the first hour, we'd rather avoid Hungary for a few months, so we're taking the road through Vienna and Ljubljana straight to our first stop, Poreč.
Welcome to Poreč, our first stop on this spring journey through Istria. This coastal town is one of the oldest and most historically significant settlements on the Croatian peninsula. Located on the western shore of Istria, it is home to around 17,000 inhabitants today. Poreč, also known by its Italian name Parenzo, was historically one of the key Roman strongholds in the region. Its roots go back to antiquity, having been founded as the Roman colony Colonia Julia Parentium in the 1st century BC. Thanks to this Roman heritage, the city still features a grid-like street layout, and traces of Roman mosaics, temple columns, and even the original forum can still be found. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Poreč came under Byzantine, Venetian, Habsburg, Italian, and Yugoslav rule, much like the rest of Istria. This diverse history is reflected not only in the architecture, but also in daily life. Italian is an official second language, and a significant part of the population belongs to the Italian minority. It's no surprise that upon entering the city, you are greeted by a bilingual sign reading Poreč, Parenzo. The Euphrasian Basilica in Poreč is one of the most significant and best-preserved examples of early Byzantine architecture in the Mediterranean. This unique complex, inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, was built in the mid-6th century during the reign of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian and is named after Bishop Euphrasius, who commissioned the church on the foundations of earlier sanctuaries. The highlight of the basilica is its beautifully preserved mosaics that decorate the apse. The most prominent one depicts the Virgin Mary holding the infant Jesus, surrounded by saints, angels, and Bishop Euphrasius himself, shown presenting a model of the church, a symbol of his patronage. These mosaics are considered among the most valuable of their kind in Europe. The entire complex includes not only the basilica itself, but also an adjacent atrium, a baptistery, and the former bishop's palace. Inside the church, visitors can also admire the original stone floors with ancient mosaics that predate the current building. Also worth noting are the relics of Saint Maurice, the patron saint of Poreč, which are kept in a side chapel. Over the centuries, many artists contributed to the basilica's adornment, including the workshop of Venetian master Paolo Campsa which worked on the altar area in the 16th century. Today, the basilica still functions as a place of worship, but also stands as a key cultural and spiritual symbol of Poreč.
From Poreč, we're heading straight to Pula. And even though our accommodation is there, that's not our main destination for today. We're going to visit the largest aquarium in Croatia, Aquarium Pula.
Welcome to Pula Aquarium. You might have already heard of this largest aquarium in Croatia. But did you know that in 2025, it opened an entirely new section in a neighboring historic building? We're visiting at the end of May, just as the aquarium prepares for the main tourist season. Some areas of the new complex are still being finalized, but what's already open is definitely worth seeing. The new pavilion is located in Fort San Giovanni, one of several Austro-Hungarian military forts that remain preserved in Pula. This is now home to a spectacular exhibition of life-sized shark models as well as their real-life counterparts, which have been moved here from the original aquarium building. So, if you're looking for the sharks in the old spot, you won't find them. Another feature of the new space is an exhibit about the Austro-Hungarian Navy, which once played a significant role along the Adriatic coast. It's a great addition for history and naval technology enthusiasts alike. Today, The aquarium hosts over 250 species of marine and freshwater animals from the Adriatic, the Mediterranean, and tropical regions. You'll see seahorses, turtles, jellyfish, corals, and even a rescue center for injured sea turtles, the only one of its kind in Croatia. The standard entrance fee for adults is $23. The aquarium is open daily, and during the summer months, operating hours are extended into the evening. So, if you're planning a visit to Pula, the aquarium is definitely a must-see.
It's 6 in the morning, and we're slowly getting up to set off for an absolute Istrian classic, Rovinj. From there, we'll head to the Pazin Cave, where we'll try out the zip line, and finally we'll stop by the Instagram-famous town of Motovun. And even though the route looks simple on the map, it actually takes us almost 13 hours. Our original plan, a stroll through Pula in the evening, gets cancelled before we even leave Motovun. Welcome to Rovinj, one of the most romantic towns along the entire Croatian coast. Colorful houses, narrow alleys, sea views, and a rich historical atmosphere attract thousands of visitors every year. It's late May, or as some say, the month of blossoms. And if you're planning to visit this or any of the nearby towns, now is truly one of the best times to go. Why, you ask? It's the 29th of May, 2025. The time is around 8 in the morning and the town is almost empty. The cafes that are open are filled mostly with locals, and you can enjoy the city in a completely different way than during the peak summer crowds or the cold winter months. Personally, this is my 5th visit to Rovinj, but the first time coming before the official start of the summer season. And I have to say, this timing, when it's already warm enough for a t-shirt and the thermometer shows over 20 degrees, is definitely the right choice. Let's talk a bit about the history. The town was originally founded as an Illyrian settlement, but it truly began to flourish during the Roman era. As early as the 2nd century BC, a Roman settlement called Arupinium was established here. Until the 18th century, Rovinj was actually an island. It wasn't until the year 1763 that it was connected to the mainland by filling in a narrow sea channel. In the 13th century, Rovinj came under the rule of the Venetian Republic, and its influence is still clearly visible today, whether in the architecture, the language, or the cuisine. After the fall of Venice, Rovinj became part of the Habsburg monarchy, and later of Italy. Today, the town is part of Croatia, and Italian remains the 2nd official language. The most prominent landmark of the entire town is the Basilica of St. Euphemia, whose slender bell tower, topped with a copper statue of the saint, rises above the historic center. The church we see today was built in the first half of the 18th century, more precisely between the years 1725 and 1726, on the site of earlier sanctuaries. Inside the basilica lies the sarcophagus of St. Euphemia, the patron saint of Rovinj. But who was this woman really? St. Euphemia was a young Christian from the city of Chalcedon, in what is now modern-day Turkey. During the persecution of Christians under Emperor Diocletian in the early 4th century, she was imprisoned, tortured, and eventually brutally executed, all at the age of 15. According to legend, she was thrown to the lions, but the animals did not tear her apart. One of them is said to have gently bitten her neck, causing her death without pain. Euphemia thus became a symbol of innocence, faith, and female courage. Her remains were buried in Chalcedon and later transferred to Constantinople, where they were placed in a grand basilica built in her honor. In the 8th century, however, the Byzantine Empire faced a religious conflict known as iconoclasm. Emperor Leo III banned the veneration of icons and relics. Fearing desecration, the monks secretly hid Euphemia's relics in a stone sarcophagus and cast it out to sea. And this is where the Croatian part of the legend begins. The unmanned sarcophagus drifted across the sea for days and nights until, one morning, supposedly on the 2nd of July, it reached the shores of Rovinj. Locals tried to pull the heavy stone sarcophagus out of the water, but it was in vain. No one could move it. Until one day, a young boy arrived at the site with 2 oxen. He prayed to the saint and, with the help of his animals, effortlessly hauled the sarcophagus up the hill above the town. This moment was seen as a miracle, and it was precisely on this hill that the new basilica was built, where the relics of St. Euphemia remain to this day. Her story has become an inseparable part of Rovinj's identity, and St. Euphemia is still considered the town's main patron. Her statue on the basilica's tower points toward the sea, and locals say that whenever it turns, it's a sign of an approaching change in the weather. We don't usually give tips on accommodation or restaurants in our videos, but today we're making an exception. Why? Because this is the 5th time we visited Rovinj and the 5th time we've dined at Taverna de Baston. You'll find it right next to the local market. And here's the best part. If you pick a fresh fish at the market, the tavern will happily grill it for you and serve it on site or pack it to go. The entire place is styled to reflect the era when Rovinj was part of Italy. On the walls, you'll find vintage photographs, old school certificates, and other memories of a bygone time. Taverna de Baston offers not only delicious food, but also a charming, authentic atmosphere. So, are you planning to visit Rovinj this year? Or have you already been there? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to tell us if you enjoyed the video. Would you like to visit one of the highest towns in Istria, offering panoramic views over vineyards, which once served as the administrative center of the entire Austro-Hungarian province? Or would you rather fly across a canyon more than 100 meters deep? A place that inspired none other than Jules Verne to write an adventure novel. Then, you're in the right place. Welcome to Motovun and the Pazin Cave. We've already completed the adrenaline-pumping part, the zip line over the deep canyon. And although we skipped the hike through the gorge this time in favor of other adventures, it would be a shame not to stop and reflect on what makes this place so extraordinary. The Pazin Cave is a unique karst formation where the Pazinska River literally disappears into the depths beneath the town of Pazin. The chasm is approximately 130 meters deep, made up of dramatic limestone cliffs and an underground system stretching beneath the entire region. This location has intrigued travelers and writers for centuries, one of whom was Jules Verne. He immortalized the Pazin Cave in his 1885 novel Matthias Sandorf. According to the story, the heroes escape through a tunnel from the Pazin castle directly into the cave's depths, a thrilling plotline that captured the imagination of readers across Europe. About 30 minutes from the Pazin Cave lies Motovun, a picturesque hilltop town that has become a frequent Instagram favorite in recent years. Let's start with a few practical tips. Parking is available below the town, although you might find a few spots near the historic center as well. However, especially during the tourist season, we don't recommend testing your luck, as a regular shuttle bus conveniently runs from the parking lot and will take you up to the old town for just a few euros. Originally an Illyrian and later a Roman settlement, Motovun came under the rule of the Venetian Republic in the 13th century, a legacy still visible today in the town's architecture and overall atmosphere. After the fall of Venice, the entire region of Istria, including Motovun, became part of the Habsburg monarchy, while coastal cities like Pula, Rijeka, and Poreč retained a strong Venetian and later Italian character. Inland towns such as Motovun served as administrative and governmental centers for the Austrian authorities in Istria. One of Motovun's main attractions is its remarkably well-preserved town walls, which today allow visitors to walk almost the entire perimeter around the historic core. And just outside the walls, you can sample the local Motovun beer, which, as we discovered, is actually brewed in Zagreb. At the heart of the town stands the Church of St. Stephen, dating back to the 17th century, built on the site of an earlier medieval church. Its simple facade and peaceful interior make it a perfect place to pause, reflect, or simply rest during your exploration of Motovun. The truth is, visiting Motovun had been on our list for several years. But since it's a bit off the main tourist routes in Istria, it just never quite fit into our previous itineraries. This time, we finally made it, and spent around 90 minutes exploring the town, which was just enough for us. Unless you're planning to hike in the surrounding countryside or explore every single alley of Motovun, we wouldn't necessarily recommend it as a full-day trip. And here comes another day, this one dedicated to Brijuni National Park. To make things even more interesting, we'll actually visit Brijuni twice today. So it's not just Brijuni, boat, Brijuni all day. We'll also make a stop in the charming town of Bale.
It's Friday morning, and we're arriving in Fajana, a small fishing town from where ferries depart every year for the Brijuni Islands. We're taking the first morning boat to make the most of our trip. If you're planning a visit here too, here's a practical parking tip. For several years now, we've been parking on Vladimira Gortana Street. It's only about a 7-minute walk to the harbor from there. Since it's the last day of May, we're lucky. Parking is cheaper than in the high season, and the same goes for tickets. Instead of the summer price of 50 euros, you'll pay just 35 per adult. Tickets for Brijuni can also be purchased directly on site. But beware! Even now, at the end of May, all tickets for today were sold out. We therefore recommend booking in advance, ideally online. Before boarding the ferry, you can, just like us, quickly stop by the local bakery and take something with you. On the island, the food options are quite limited, with practically only one larger restaurant. And where exactly does the ferry depart from? You'll see that in our video. Welcome to Brijuni, a unique archipelago that today is one of Croatia's 8 national parks. While Brijuni now attracts visitors with its natural beauty, tranquility, and historical monuments, the islands have been inhabited since ancient times. The first traces of human presence here go back to Roman times. You can still find the remains of an extensive Roman villa rustica from the 1st century AD in Varege Bay. Its likely owner was a wealthy Roman patrician named Lucius Cassius Longinus, known from epigraphic finds in the area. The villa had its own harbor, baths, gardens, and a sanctuary. From a later period, the so-called Byzantine castrum has been preserved, a fortified complex that served as an administrative and military center when Istria was part of the Byzantine Empire. Its walls and the remains of residential and economic buildings still remind us that Brijuni held strategic importance even in the Middle Ages. In the second half of the 19th century, Brijuni suffered from malaria, until Austrian industrialist Paul Kupelwieser bought the entire archipelago and, with the help of the famous Dr. Robert Koch, carried out extensive sanitation of the area. Thanks to draining the swamps and fighting mosquitoes, the islands were transformed into a luxurious resort for the European elite. In March 1912, Brijuni even welcomed an important guest, Archduchess Maria Josepha of Saxony, mother of the future Emperor Charles I and the last king of Bohemia. By the end of the 19th century, Brijuni had become a place of cultural and social events, including the reopening of the Romanesque Church of St. German, attended by prominent guests of the Habsburg monarchy. This small, unassuming single-nave church was built back in 1481 and is dedicated to Bishop and Martyr Saint Germanus of Pula, who was executed during the reign of Emperor Diocletian. It stands in the central part of the island. Although it no longer serves as an active place of worship, the church is still maintained and is often used for small exhibitions or cultural events. On the western coast of Veliki Brijun Island, you'll find a silent witness to history, one of the oldest olive trees in all of Croatia. This massive tree has been growing here for more than 1,600 years, dating back to the time when Brijuni belonged to the Romans. It still bears olives today, and a small amount of olive oil is pressed from them each year. Its hollow trunk and expansive crown symbolize the connection between nature and history, and it's definitely worth a short stop during your visit to the island. Next to the 1,000-year-old olive tree, you'll find another spot that you can visit either on its own or as the final stop of a guided tour: the Mediterranean Garden, a quiet corner of the island that attracts both botany enthusiasts and those looking to relax in nature. This garden was established in 2007 in cooperation with the Croatian Institute of Plant Biology, and today it is home to more than 170 species of Mediterranean, subtropical, and endemic plants, from lavender and rosemary to rare types of palms, citrus trees, and oleanders. The aim of this garden is not only aesthetics, but also education and biodiversity conservation. There are information boards describing individual plants, benches for resting, and well-maintained paths that guide you through the different sections. The garden is just a few minutes' walk from the main tourist route and is freely accessible to all island visitors. Whether you want to learn something about the local flora or simply relax for a while in the shade of pines and cypresses, this is a place you definitely shouldn't miss. The most famous resident of the Brijuni Islands was undoubtedly Josip Broz Tito, the charismatic leader of former Yugoslavia who loved the archipelago so much that he spent almost every summer here. Tito began visiting the islands regularly in 1947 and, over his lifetime, spent more than 30 years here. In his main residence in the middle of the park, he welcomed prominent world leaders, artists, and friends. His guests included figures like Fidel Castro, Indira Gandhi, Haile Selassie, Elizabeth Taylor, and Sophia Loren. Tito traveled around the islands in his iconic green Cadillac Eldorado, which you can still see today, not only as a museum piece, but also available for rent, though the price is far from negligible. This luxurious convertible was a gift from Yugoslav emigrants in Canada and became a symbol of Tito's presence on Brijuni. And it wasn't just cars that Tito received. As a token of respect and friendship, many countries sent him exotic animals: elephants, zebras, llamas, antelopes, and ostriches. These gifts became the foundation of today's popular safari park, which is now one of the island's main attractions. The safari park was established in 1961, and you can still see animals there that are descendants of the original diplomatic gifts. Tito's presence forever changed the islands. Thanks to his passion for nature, wildlife, and social life, Brijuni became a unique blend of national park and political heritage. Let's take a look at the transportation options on the islands. If you choose a guided ticket, you'll be assigned to a group based on your selected language right at the start. Then you'll set off on a sightseeing tour by train, which takes you through selected parts of the island, mainly the safari park we've already mentioned. After you get off, your guide will take you to the Church of St. Germanus, Tito's summer residence, the memorial plaque to Dr. Robert Koch, past the 1,000-year-old olive tree, the remains of the Roman villa, and in some cases, even to the Mediterranean garden we talked about earlier. On the other hand, the Byzantine fortress, the lookout tower, or one of the last two animal witnesses of Tito, Koki the parrot, you'll have to find on your own. Since Brijuni is home to one of the largest and oldest golf courses in Europe, it's probably no surprise that one of the transport options is a golf cart. This is especially worthwhile if you're a group of 4. If you're traveling as a couple, you'll probably find an electric scooter more cost-effective. In any case, it's best to reserve these vehicles in advance during the high season. The last option, besides your own 2 feet, is a classic bicycle. Note, not electric. So if, like us, you decide to cycle around the island, be prepared to pedal the whole way. On the other hand, with a price of €8 per hour per person, you probably won't mind if you take an extra hour or 2. One practical tip to finish. If you just want to rent a classic bike, don't wait in line at the wooden booth. That's where payments for returning scooters and golf carts or new reservations are handled. For bikes, go to the small table about 3 meters away. One of the most fascinating places you can visit on Brijuni is the aviary with a parrot named Koki. This white cockatoo is the last truly living resident of the island who still remembers the days when Josip Broz Tito spent his summers here. Koki was originally a gift for the president and lived right in the presidential villa. According to witnesses, he still mimics the human voice, even coughing like Tito did, and sometimes letting out a rather rude remark. He's a bit grumpy, but definitely worth seeing. To visit Koki, you'll need to walk. His aviary is about 1 kilometer from where you get off the train. That's if you find the right path, because even with tourist signs, it's not always straightforward. On your way, you'll also pass one of the most historically important places on the island, a freshwater spring, which meant Brijuni didn't have to rely entirely on supplies from the mainland in the past. This was one of the reasons Tito chose the island as his summer residence. One of the lesser-known but beautiful spots on Veliki Brijun is a viewpoint facing the sea. It's located near the remains of the Byzantine castrum and offers peace, quiet, and a wide view of the open Adriatic. After returning from Brijuni, we stop for a while in Foška. The town itself isn't very big. It only takes us about 30 minutes to explore. We still have time for a coffee and watch other visitors getting ready for their own trips to the islands. This time, we spent 6 hours on Brijuni, about the same as every year. Honestly, we think that's the ideal amount of time to walk around, enjoy everything at your own pace, and not feel rushed. On the way from Brijuni National Park, we head deeper into the Istrian hinterland, to the small but historically significant town of Bale. At first glance, this peaceful stone town with its narrow alleys gives the impression that time has stood still here. Bale, also known by its Italian name Vale, developed around a medieval fortress, which was later rebuilt by nobles from the Venetian Bembo family. Their castle still dominates the historic center of the town and serves as a reminder of the period when Istria was under Venetian rule. Just a few steps away is a true gem, the tiny stone church of St. Dujam. Inside, you'll find a unique cycle of medieval frescoes from the 14th and 15th centuries, colorful scenes of Christ, the Madonna, and saints that have survived centuries and the storms of war. Overlooking the main square stands the Church of St. Julian, a neo-Romanesque building from the late 19th century, dedicated to the town's patron saint. The church's current form dates back to 1880, when it was built on the site of an older sacred building that could no longer accommodate the growing community. The church is designed in the neo-Romanesque style, characteristic of the second half of the 19th century. Inside, you'll find a simple yet respectfully decorated interior, statues of saints, and the main altar dedicated to St. Julian, the town's patron and a martyr from the 4th century. Today, in addition to regular services, the church also hosts classical music concerts and evenings of spiritual poetry. The evening bells are a reminder that even in such a small town, spiritual life can remain vibrant for centuries. We spend the evening in Pula, the largest city in Istria, which was once an important military port and the main base of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Today, Pula is best known for its huge attraction, the Roman Colosseum, or Pula Arena, the sixth largest surviving amphitheater in the world. We walk all the way around it and explore the city center, but to be honest, we're done in about 90 minutes. All the more reason to look forward to our evening plans. At 6 o'clock, we board a boat heading toward the Brijuni Islands, hoping to spot some dolphins. Spoiler, we actually saw them. The dominant landmark of Pula is its Roman amphitheater, the Pula Arena. Built by Emperor Vespasian in the 1st century AD, at the same time as the famous Colosseum in Rome, it stands as one of the best-preserved amphitheaters in the world. The Pula Arena is unique for having all 4 of its side towers completely preserved, and its beautifully intact limestone walls once accommodated up to 23,000 spectators. In ancient times, people from across the region gathered here to watch gladiator battles, executions, and, in the Middle Ages, nightly tournaments. Today, the arena hosts concerts, operas, and summer festivals instead of ancient spectacles. While you can walk around the site in just a few minutes, simply standing next to such an ancient and monumental structure is an experience in itself. There's an interesting story about Pula and Benito Mussolini. When Mussolini first visited the city, he went straight into the crowds, where he was actually slapped by someone. On his second visit, he chose to speak only from the balcony of the bank on the main square. And even then, he was booed by the people. At that time, Pula, like the whole of Istria, was undergoing intense Italianization. Names of people, streets, and places were changed. If your name was Josip Rujic, suddenly you became Giuseppe Rossi. This is one of the reasons why there are so many Italians in Istria today. Yes, Venice historically had a strong influence here, and later Italy as a state, but according to our guide, many of today's Italian Istrians are actually locals whose names were simply Italianized.
last day in Croatia, we head to the inland town of Vodnjan, which surprises us, among other things, with its mummified saints. We also take a look inside the only Orthodox church in Istria and spend the rest of the day relaxing on the beach in Medulin. Welcome to Vodnjan, a charming town in Istria that hides treasures of medieval architecture, the largest church in the region, mummified saints, and a surprisingly lively contemporary art scene. This town proves that Istria isn't just about tourist-filled beaches. It's also home to quiet places full of atmosphere and fascinating history. And honestly, while strolling through narrow streets usually isn't my favorite activity, Vodnjan feels like it was made for exactly that kind of exploration. Let's now talk about its location, a bit of its history, and why you'll find signs not only in Croatian, but also in Italian, something already hinted at on the town's welcome sign. Vodnjan, Dignano. Vodnjan is located just a few kilometers north of Pula and has the character of a town much larger than it actually is. It boasts a rich and colorful history. From the 14th century, Vodnjan was part of the Venetian Republic until its fall in 1797. After that, it came under the rule of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, where it remained until the end of World War I in 1918. It then became part of Italy until 1947. After World War II, the town was incorporated into Yugoslavia, and since 1991 has been part of independent Croatia. According to the Austro-Hungarian census from 1910, Vodnjan had about 6,000 inhabitants, more than half of whom were Italians. After the Second World War and the mass exodus of the Italian population, the town's demographic shifted significantly. Today, Italians make up roughly 25% of Vodnjan's population. Vodnjan is also home to the largest Roma community in Istria, as well as a significant Bosniak minority. In the nearby coastal town of Peroj lives the largest Orthodox Christian community in Istria, which has been there since the 17th century. In 1788, they were granted permission to build their own church, the Church of St. Spiridon, which was completed in 1834 and still serves the faithful to this day. One of the most striking buildings on Vodnjan's main square is the town hall, Gradska Palica. This Renaissance-style building dates back to 1911, when it was rebuilt on the foundations of older Gothic and Renaissance houses that had stood on the site since the Middle Ages. The town hall has retained its stately appearance to this day, with elegant arcades, the city coat of arms, and a characteristic balcony from which important decisions of the town council were once publicly announced. The facade is adorned with Venetian architectural elements, reflecting the long period during which Vodnjan was under Venetian rule. Just a 5-minute walk from the historic town hall of Vodnjan lies one of the most important pilgrimage and reliquary sites in Europe, the parish church of St. Blaise. This remarkable church houses an astonishing collection of over 370 relics, representing around 250 different saints from all over the world. The collection was brought to Vodnjan in 1818 by Gaetano Gresler, a Venetian painter and member of the Imperial Academy. Fleeing Napoleon's army, he sailed from Venice with the precious relics aboard a boat. Since then, they have been preserved in this extraordinary place. Among the highlights are the reliquary of St. John of Nepomuk, the ceremonial vestments of Pope Innocent XII, dating to around 1700, and most famously, the local phenomenon known as Chudo u Vodnjanu, the miracle of Vodnjan. 4 uncorrupted bodies of saints, neither embalmed nor hermetically sealed. These are Nicolosa Bursa, a Benedictine nun known for miraculous healings, died in the early 16th century, Ivan Olini, a preacher who cared for plague victims, Leon Bembo, a Venetian chaplain turned hermit in the 12th century, and last one, Paul of Constantinople, patriarch and participant in the First Council of Nicaea, 325 AD. Other saints are represented by partial relics, such as Saint Barbara, a leg, Saint Sebastian, a torso, Mary of Egypt, a tongue, and Saint Eutychius, a finger. Inside the church, you will also find a faithful replica of the Shroud of Turin, brought here from Rome. The original, globally known as the Santa Sindoni, is believed to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. According to legend, it was first possessed by Pontius Pilate's wife, who gifted it to St. Peter. The Church of St. Blaise is the tallest church in Istria and attracts thousands of pilgrims every year. It is a must-see for anyone exploring the deeper spiritual and historical layers of the region. And now let's take a closer look at the church itself. It is the largest parish church in Istria, built in the 18th century on the site of a former basilica. Its freestanding bell tower, inspired by Venetian architecture, reaches a height of 63 meters, making it the tallest structure of its kind in all of Istria. The church features 10 altars, each containing a relic of the saint to whom it is dedicated. The original organ, built in 1818, was the work of Venetian master Giacomo Bassani. In 1924, it was replaced by a new instrument crafted by Beniamino Zanin from Camino di Codroipo, and it remains in use to this day. But this church isn't the only surprise you'll encounter in Vodnjan. Just a few steps from the main parking area, you'll find one of the most prestigious olive oil producers, not just in Istria, but in the entire world. The quality of Tonin olive oils is evident from a wall filled with international awards, as well as the brand's regular inclusion in the renowned Floss Ole Guide, which ranks the best extra virgin olive oils worldwide. And indeed, both the oil itself and the tasting experience with the charming owners made for an unforgettable visit. We still have 3 more stops to visit around Vodnjan today. The first one is just outside the town, Kažun Park. It's a unique open-air exhibition of traditional Istrian stone huts known as Kažuni. These dry stone shelters were used by farmers as protection from the sun or rain and are a characteristic feature of the Istrian landscape. In the park, you'll learn how Kažuni were built and why they hold such cultural importance for the region. Along the way to our next stop, the Church of St. Foška, you'll even spot several freestanding Kažuni scattered across the countryside. Our second stop is the Church of St. Foška, a Romanesque Gothic gem hidden amidst the Istrian countryside. Located about 4 kilometers west of Vodnjan, it is considered one of the most important sacred monuments in this part of Istria. The church was built in the 12th century on the remains of an earlier structure and is dedicated to St. Foška, a Roman martyr whose cult spread through the area, mainly due to Venetian influence. Unfortunately, the church is only open on selected days and at specific times. We were lucky. On Saturday, it was open from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., However, the exact opening hours are hard to predict, so we recommend checking directly at the Church of St. Blaž in Vodnjan, under whose administration the Church of St. Foška falls. Our final stop for today is the seaside town of Peroj, the closest coastal resort near Vodnjan, best known for its unique history. In the second half of the 17th century, Montenegrins who fled the Ottoman invasion were settled here. These Orthodox settlers brought with them their faith, language, and culture, and in 1788, they built the Church of St. Spiridon. According to official records from the Eparchy of Gorge Karlovac, this church remains the only functioning Orthodox church in all of Istria to this day. Just like the Church of St. Foška, it is only open on selected days and times. However, if your partner dreams of a seaside wedding and you also require an Orthodox ceremony, this might be the perfect place to make it all work. As long as both partners are baptized, you can combine tradition and romance just a few hours' drive from Prague, Bratislava, Budapest, or Vienna. We spend the last hours of our Istrian trip on Bijeka Beach in Medulin. It's perfect for families with children, sandy, shallow, and warm. We're surprised to meet American veterans here, and there's even a concert on the beach, which we really enjoy. In the evening, we head back to Pula just to get some sleep. And then it's time to leave. But not to Prague. That would be too easy. We still have one more adventure ahead, an Iron Maiden concert in Bratislava. A small tip to finish: if you're driving from Pula towards Ljubljana, plan carefully where to exit the highway. It's about a 45-minute drive to the last toll gate, but we ended up waiting another 70 minutes in a traffic jam there.
Longing to be, oh baby, tell me you love me, tell me you love me. Oh, the kiss me while the twilight stars shine above me, shine above me. Oh hey Marie, hey Marie, oh Marie, oh Marie. In your arms I'm longing to be, longing to be. Oh baby, tell me you love me, tell me you love me. Hey Marie, hey Marie.